Hey, everybody, and welcome back to episode 7 of Inside Our Phillies. This is Joe, and today I'm here with one of our most active and best users on the subreddit, Should Have Had Giles. How's it going?
It's going pretty well. Pretty excited to be on this podcast with you.
Yeah, super glad to have you here. We just wrapped up a 2-1 series win over the Cincinnati Reds. Started off with a 9-5 loss on the 4th of July. Saturday, 5-1 win, and then today, 3-1 win. So let's get right into it and talk about the game today a little bit. Obviously, the big story is just how Zach Wheeler dominated. And really, the thing that I couldn't stop thinking about was just like how lucky we are to have him. I know it seems that it's not going to be longer than 2027, and he wants this contract to be his last contract. But I'm just really learning to appreciate every single start we get of a lot of our starting pitchers, but especially Zach Wheeler. Going 9 innings today, rarity in today's game, and third time through the lineup, it just looked like it was so easy for him.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that the fan base as a whole should collectively forgive many of the sins of the Clentak McPhail era just for stealing Wheeler out of free agency in 2020. It is, I think, a move the Phillies have made. I don't think there's been a quality of move like that since maybe when they traded for Abreu from the Astros. It's just unbelievable that they were able to snatch him up seemingly without much competition. And everybody in the MLB world saying that it was going to be an awful signing and that they way overpaid. And then, of course, it ends up being that they massively underpaid. And just he is so special to watch every time he's out there for them, especially just on a day-to-day basis. I was lucky enough to go see him in late 2021. It was the Halladay number retirement game against the Mets when he threw that shutout and swept the Mets. And he is so much fun to watch. It's a tragedy that he does not have a Cy Young yet. It seems like every year he has a chance to win the Cy Young. There's somebody else who has some kind of absurd, crazy year, like Paul Skeens this year. I'm just begging for some team to go and just drop 5 runs on Skeens in 3 innings and just help Wheeler out because he needs a Cy Young. Obviously, I think I'd rather him get a ring first. If I had to pick one or the other, get him a ring before getting him a Cy Young. But it is just unthinkable to me that he's going to have this stretch in Philadelphia and end it without a Cy Young.
No, I think you're spot on. That first Wheeler contract is going to go down as one of the all-time greats when you look at it as like a dollar for WAR perspective. And talking about the Cy Young odds, I went to Polymarket just before we started reviewing, before we started this podcast. And Polymarket has him at 44% to win the Cy Young this year. For reference, Skeens was at 47%. So it's looking like it's going to be one of the two of them. Are you buying or are you selling at 44% for Zach Wheeler to win the Cy Young this year?
So, believe it or not, I think I am selling just because as good as Wheeler is, as good as he is, and he is an all-time great Phillies pitcher, he deserves a Cy Young. Paul Skeens is the hot new thing on the block for the MLB world. He's going to be much more popular, and the Cy Young Award, though it's less of a popularity contest now, it still is somewhat of a popularity contest. And Wheeler, as I think we know, is every couple of months prone to having that one just stinker thrown in there where none of his pitches are working and he gives up 4 or 5 runs over 5 innings. Think like his start against the Yankees last year or something.
A couple national starts too. Always feels like he struggles against the Nationals.
Yeah, the Nationals are just pests to him. And I don't think that it's not that he doesn't deserve one. It's just that Paul Skeens is Paul Skeens. And I will believe Paul Skeens is capable of having like 2 or 3 bad starts in a row when I see it. It's just I'm so used to Wheeler not getting it that I will believe Wheeler's getting the Cy Young when he is being announced as the winner of the Cy Young. So for now, I'm still cautious on it.
I'm with you. You look at most of the big pitching stats. You look at ERA, you look at FIP, you look at innings pitched. And Skeens has Wheeler beat. WHIP is something actually that Wheeler is ahead of in Skeens. But I'm with you. I'm probably going to sell that 44%. I think I would buy it around like 30% or so. But at the end of the day, I think what this is going to come down to is the message that the voters want to send, right? Because I think that at the end of the day, like a lot of what the on-field performance does is just like getting you in the picture, and then they just go with the story. And I think that you can make a good claim that Skeens winning a Cy Young being the next young guy coming up and really taking over the league. I could see them wanting to sell that story, but I could also see them trying to sell a story of here's a guy, Zach Wheeler, who's been so close so many times, and he had another amazing year, and now we're finally going to give it to him, kind of like what we saw with Chris Sale last year. But I want it to be a good Sailing race. These races are so fun for the major awards, and
They
I
are,
hope
for
that
sure.
Wheeler continues the way that he's been going.
Yeah, if there were an option, I think I would just pick hold on the odds. I don't know that I would buy or sell just because it is that close. Like, you could legitimately give it to either pitcher here, and I could not be upset about it. And it's sort of like 2021, where there have been times where I've been upset about the 21 Cy Young race, but I go back and look at it, and Burns was insane in 21, and I think looking back on it, it's fair to say that it was a toss-up who could have won it. It's just, you can't really be angry, I think, at this point if Paul Skeens wins it over Wheeler, and I'm just not super sold that either outcome's a possibility. They're both equally possible.
Absolutely. I think I'd be more upset if this was going to be like a make or break thing for Wheeler's Hall of Fame case, but
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I still have a hard time seeing him making the Hall of Fame, even with 2.5 more great years, just because his WAR is not going to be up to the standard that voters would like to see.
Yeah, I think that, just his early career was just too injury riddled, and he missed too many of his early seasons to get into the Hall of Fame. I think, though, we're getting to a point where MLB Hall of Fame voters are starting to absolutely value how you perform in your prime, like the best years of your career, over
Right.
just your numbers as a whole. Like, you can see with otherwise people like Chase Utley wouldn't have a chance of getting into the Hall of Fame, I don't think. But now they're looking to like saying, well, Chase Utley was one of the best second basemen for 6 years in baseball. Maybe he should get sent into the Hall of Fame because how legendarily great he was. So maybe Wheeler ends up sort of getting an Utley kind of Koufax type thing where his prime was so legendarily great that he gets placed into the Hall of Fame. I think that's his only route, though.
Yeah, I mean, that peak is really something that you hear about more and more. It's a great call out. On the more negative side, we had Jesus Luzardo start on the 4th of July.
Uh,
Kind of another clunker for him. His ERA is up to 4.44, 2 innings and 5 earned runs in this one. What are you thinking on Jesus?
so I am not going to be super concerned on Luzardo until after the All-Star break if he keeps sucking. So to make this clear, uh, Luzardo last season threw 66 total innings all season. This year he is already at 97. So there is going to be some wear down on Jesus Luzardo as you get deeper into this season, which I think actually might even make it more likely that he gets sent to the bullpen in the playoffs because of how worn down he's going to be by the end of the season. But you look at all his numbers across the board, and they are way better than last year. They're kind of close to his last full season, which was 2023 with the Marlins, where he was excellent. But they're all very close to that. His K per nine is about 10.5. His ground ball rate's 42%. It's just that it seems to me like he's wearing down a bit, and his pitches are kind of staying up in the zone, but his stuff still looks like it's there. I'm not super concerned yet over what's been like maybe 3 or 4 rough starts over the course of the season here, but they're just all tightly bunched together, which makes it, I think, look a lot worse.
Right. I think he just looks like he needs a break. I'm not
Yep.
concerned long term about him. But you look at his strikeout rate, like you said, still excellent. Walk rate, manageable. Home runs, he's done an excellent job at preventing the long balls this year. And that leads to a FIP, which is just taking those 3 true outcomes, only the things the pitcher can control. And he's at a 277 for his FIP. So the velocity is still where you want it to be. The stuff is still looking great. I would just like to see them skip him over in the rotation a couple
Yeah.
times, give him a break until the trade deadline's over, and give him a few weeks to build back up.
My main worry here is that what we see with his FIP is that he ends up turning into a let me pull this up here. A sort of like a Nick Pivetta from 2019, where everybody said, well, his FIP is good. We go, yeah, his FIP is good, but that's because all the balls that he allows in play are like 210 miles an hour off the bat, but they're just not home
Right.
runs. They're getting hit off the wall, so it doesn't really factor into the FIP equation. But overall, I definitely agree. I think the All-Star break is going to do him a lot of good. He can rest, recuperate, and come back. He'll be fresh out of the All-Star break. I'm not super worried about Jesus Luzardo.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to the offense now. Stott
Mhm.
is one of the big discussion points that we've had for a couple of episodes now, and how he's been
Yeah.
struggling. But he had a huge home run today. Take the lead late in the game, give Wheeler the opportunity to get the win. His swing looks different. They talked about it a little bit on the broadcast.
Mhm.
Rob Thompson talked about it a little bit in his quote about how it can get a little bit loopy. Where are you on Bryson Stott, and do you buy that there might be a swing change that could explain struggles?
So I want to first add into this that the only reason Stott was able to have success in 23 was because Kevin Long changed his mechanics so that he could actually get to fastballs by eliminating his stride. So this isn't like a Kevin Long thing, like I've seen some people just across the internet saying where Kevin Long ruined Bryson Stott. Kevin Long's the only reason Stott was good in 2023 and the end of 2022. But so far, for right now, Stott as a whole, I think still has a good amount of value to be given to this team. He's an elite base runner. He's an excellent defender. I don't think he's as bad as he's been hitting. Bryson Stott is never going to be, even when he was scouted and projected in the minors as a prospect, he was never projected as a high-end prospect or anything that was going to, hit the cover off the ball. He's projected, I think his ceiling, if I'm remembering correctly, this was back in 2019, was as a basically league average hitter who was really excellent defensively at second base. And you look at his expected batting average, and it's 242, which is about where it is now, but just everything doesn't scream. If you look at his just things, his page on Savant, it doesn't scream worst in the league hitter, which is what he's been close to or at since near the end of May. He's not chasing pitches, he's not whiffing. I don't know that I buy that it is entirely his swing changing. I think it is that inherently Bryson Stott does not hit the ball hard enough or on enough of a line drive, hit enough line drives to be successful, like high levels of success in the major leagues for a long time. So I don't know how much I buy that. I think it's a little bit of it, but I don't think you're going to magically see Bryson Stott turn into a 280 hitter or something because they flatten his swing out.
Right. I don't think Bryson Stott is the leadoff hitter that a lot of us thought that he would be at the end of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main thing that sticks out to me is you look at his BABIP. 2022, 274 BABIP. 2024, 275. 2025, 277.
Yep.
And then you look at 2023, it jumps up to 312. So
Yep.
that stands out that he might have gotten a little lucky in 23. Now, with that being said, I think that Bryson Stott's floor is still really good because of that defensive prowess in the middle infield, because of what he provides on the base paths, and just because he draws long at bats, which can't
Yep.
really hit, Traxton Warren in any different way. So, am I freaking out about him? No, but do I buy that he's going to be some, 110, 120 above average offensive player? I don't buy that either, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, and if Bryson Stott, let's say he's what he is at the end of 2023, or even just slightly worse than what he's at the end of 2023. He's an extremely useful player that you want on your team. Like, not every player you have has to be putting up 4 F4 a year. He's really cheap. He's about a 2 to 3 F4 player, and that's fine. That's fine to have at the bottom of your lineup. He does a couple things really well. All he needs to be is, and I don't mean this as like a bad way against him, he just needs to be bad at offense. What he is right now is like, where he has been for the past month and a half or so, is apocalyptically bad. If he's just normal bad, he's still a pretty good player.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. He just needs to be, a league average second baseman offensively, and then his value is, like you said, 2 to 3 WAR. You're given, an above average offensive player, or above average player overall with that league average second base offense. The other guy that we're hearing a lot about is Bryce Harper, who came back from injury, and he has not looked great. I know that this has been a trend a lot of time with Bryce Harper, where it just doesn't look right and it doesn't look smooth as he's getting his timing back. Where are you at on Bryce?
So, I feel like this is a bit of pattern recognition, and I know that people are kind of different on this because it sort of sounds like it's a chronic injury deal that it's not going to fully go away basically ever. But I want everybody just let's think back to late 2022 when Harper came back and started DHing for the team because he couldn't play right field because of the elbow injury. Bryce Harper was awful at the end of 2022. Like, he was awful at the end of that season. And then he only caught fire once he got into the playoffs and he hit that nuke off of Michaelis in the wild card. And he just has a long history of being just terrible when he first comes off his injuries and then coming back to being a really good player. And I will note that even before the injury this season, when he went onto the IL for like what feels like a month, I don't know if it was a month or not.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, for a month, he was still putting up good offensive numbers on the year. It's not Bryce Harper numbers. It was about like an 840, 850 OPS. What you gotta understand is, guys, like Bryce Harper is 33. We are officially at the halfway point of the contract where stuff is going to start falling off. Harper was still doing really well for a guy who's 33 years old, has had multiple injuries, and isn't really a fast base runner. He was still putting up good offensive production. It's just his power was down a little bit. So I'm not super concerned. If Bryce Harper is still struggling this badly in like mid-August, I'll start getting a little more concerned. My concern level right now is like maybe a 2 out of 10. That's only because the injury might be chronic. But everybody, I think, needs to calm down. Let's not overreact over, a couple games against the Reds and such. It's not the end of the world yet, I don't think.
I think I'm at pretty much the same spot as you. He's such a rhythm guy, and his rhythm probably gets thrown off when he's not playing for long stretches of time. And with the All-Star break, there could be another opportunity where his rhythm kind of just gets messed up. So I'm with you. Give us until like at least the beginning of August, probably the middle of August, and see how he's doing then. The one thing that I am concerned about with Bryce Harper is how much he's been struggling to catch up with the fastballs. I haven't actually seen if this is actually true in the stats, but it feels like it's been true for at least this season, going even before he was hurt. And he just seems behind all of the hard stuff that's thrown his way. And in a league where you see hard stuff more and more often, especially late in games out of the bullpen, I'm a little concerned. But he is getting older, and there is going to be some kind of regression that takes form at some point, and that might just be a way that it's showing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what I'm actually, frankly, more concerned about is how much more he seems like. Maybe it's just me, and it's something I didn't pick up on last year or the year before. It feels like he is getting like more Ryan Howard swings and misses at left-handed breaking balls down and away than he has at any point in his career. We just see him, just flail at it. That's that's what's sort of concerning to me. Is then if he feels like he needs to start so early that he can't see the ball, and he ends up getting fooled that badly on a breaking ball down and away, that shows his bat speed is declining if he's having to start up that early and hence getting fooled by breaking balls like that. That would concern me with Bryce Harper.
Right, and he never looked comfortable against those guys. A lot of the time we'd see him try to bunt against the overshift.
Yeah.
Then he faced one of those funky lefties, or you saw him just kind of show no interest in the at bat.
Hobie Milner at bat.
Yeah, exactly. Hobie Milner is exactly what I'm thinking of there. But at the end of the day, I think we're both in a solid place on Harper, and just give it time. No reason to freak out right now. Now let's go to the bullpen. I know you had some stuff about Strom, so I'll hand it over to you for that.
So Matt Strom is interesting. Matt Strom, as we all know, is just otherworldly in 2024, and I think that's partially given fans sort of a false image of who Matt Strom is. So let's remember back in 2023 when they signed Strom, he was sort of seen as a seventh inning type guy, maybe a long dude if he really had to. Remember, he was a starting pitcher to start the year because their starting rotation was so injured. And he was good, but he was not like the elite Terminator level closer that he was in 2024. So coming into this year, the big thing everybody's focused on is him losing about just a bit over a mile per hour off his fastball velocity. And that's, fair. It's a pretty important thing to look at because, it's the easiest thing to pick up on. You see it on the radar gun. You're like, man, Matt Strom's throwing 90, 92 and not 91, 94. That's not right. That's not Matt Strom. But I think the bigger thing you have to look at with him is that his K rate has gone down from 33% last year to about 27% this year. His ground ball percentage which was already not good last year, was only 32%, has dropped to 23.5% this year, which means he is giving up a ton of fly balls. Okay. And he already in 2024 was just kind of about a little bit above average in terms of hard hit percentage. So you're already kind of playing with fire. And then this year, he's getting hard hit about 45% of the time. Another thing I noticed when I'm just looking straight at his Savant page, is it looks like, and I'm not an expert looking at Savant page, so I might be misreading it, his slider horizontal break, and his slider is his biggest secondary pitch, is breaking a lot less horizontally this year, which if your slider, like your guy like Strom, your breaking pitches are not breaking like they used to be, you're going to have a lot of issues getting guys out consistently. And you've seen that bear out in the numbers. His whiff percentage has gone down dramatically as well. I think that's in large part due to his slider going down. Now, Matt Strom does not suck this year. Matt Strom has an expected ERA of about 3.2. So there is still a good pitcher in there. I think we are seeing a little bit of getting older and a little bit of regressing to sort of who he is supposed to be when they signed him. And like what fans I think need to understand is relief pitchers are incredibly volatile year to year. We saw that with Andrew Bellotti. Andrew Bellotti was outstanding in 2022, unusable every year after that. Connor Brogdon was lights out in 21, really great in 2022, and then just fell off the map, just like an anvil dropping to earth. So there is some relief pitcher volatility. There's some getting older there. There's maybe some mechanical things going on. But Strom is still a good pitcher. I think that a lot of this, we can't ever rely on Strom again talk that we've sort of got, at least feels like we're getting, is a bit overblown. He's still getting good chases. He's still not walking people. He's still missing barrels a good amount. He's still striking out a good amount of hitters. It's just that a couple things have gone down. And I think things like your slider breaking less, you can fix with some adjustments to how you're throwing the pitch. The fastball velocity, maybe it's a mechanical thing. I don't really know. I'm not an expert looking at the film like that. But I don't think it's an apocalypse, but I think it is explained a little bit more than just he's not throwing as hard.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you for the most part. I think that Strom is the guy that's impacted the most by Alvarado not being here.
Absolutely.
Matt Strom, when he was signed, was never supposed to be your number one lefty out of the pen. And he wasn't supposed to be this year. It was supposed to be Alvarado and, maybe, extra trade at the trade deadline. And all of a sudden he gets pushed down even more to being the middle reliever, like you were saying he was probably supposed to be. And he's just miscast right now. And at the end of the day, I don't think he's something to be overly concerned about, because if he's just your seventh inning guy and he's doing the way he is right now, nobody would care about it. That's perfectly fine. But when he's your number one lefty out of the pen and he gets the tough matchups and they hit him hard, it is what it is, and it doesn't look great. But at the end of the day, I think it's fine. It's a great contract that we signed him to. The extension.
Oh, yeah.
Super happy with that still.
I'll say the guy that shocked me the most out of the bullpen this year is Tanner Banks. Like, I think half this fan base wanted Tanner Banks just crucified at the start of the year. I mean, he was awful last year, unwatchably terrible. And, he started off this year strong. And I keep looking back at his pages, expecting to see that, it's all a mirage, like, Brad Hand in 2022, who owner of the most fake sub-2 ERA of all time. And Tanner Banks, he's like actually good this year. He's actually good, and it's shocking to see. But I'm glad to see it. I think everybody's glad when they're wrong about a player sucking. I don't think there's anybody that is, unhappy about that. But Tanner Banks is, I think, the biggest surprise on the team this year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Tanner Banks' ERA plus, and it's a career high right now of 134, so 34% better than your average pitcher. But one other thing that might surprise you is across his career, he has never had a negative ERA plus. 131, 100, 106, 101 last year before the trade, 116 after the trade, and then 134 this year. So he's always been, at the very least, an average pitcher, and I think that trade was excellent, looking back on it.
We might get to this later when we talk about trade deadline stuff. I think last year's deadline from Dombrowski gets way too much hate from the fan base, who are basically looking at it with hindsight and not with, okay, what were we trying to do at the time of the trade, and did the trade at the time make sense for what they were trying to do?
Yeah, I agree with that to some extent. I do think that his hesitancy to go all in can be frustrating. And I get the frustration that other fans have, and I'm frustrated by it myself, because when you have a team that's built on, old stars, old core, every year the chances of them winning goes down. And the Phillies are still a very good team this year, but they were probably better last year, and they might have been better in 23 than they were in 24, despite the records. And I think at some point you have to either go all in, or you have to say that you don't believe in this core and you want to have a sustainable future. And I think that they might be not believing the core, but I think they might be wanting to have a sustainable future and not have things fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating for fans who want to have a team that they love and watch every single night have the best chance that they have to win.
Yeah. So I want to say that, first off, I think the 23 deadline deserves way more hate than it gets over the 24 deadline. The big moves in the 23 deadline were Michael Lorenzen and Rodolfo Castro. So, that was terrible. But the 24 deadline, I think what fans got to look at is the only real hole that they could have seriously filled, the holes they could have filled, were center field and getting a right-handed platoon guy for left field with Brandon Marsh, because Marsh was unwatchably bad against lefties last year. I'm glad he is good against them this year. And then maybe some guys to round out the bullpen. So that's where the Austin Hayes trade comes in, where they went and got Austin Hayes, specifically the platoon with Brandon Marsh against left-handed pitchers. And before, he got just a series of the most random, ridiculous injuries I have seen from a player in my admittedly, relatively short time watching a team as a person, given that I started watching in 2013. He just could never get going with the team, and it just unfortunately didn't work out. Then the bullpen trades like Tanner Banks and Carlos Estevez, I think were the right moves to try and round out the bullpen. I think the issue is that they just have so many guys who are locked in on the team that it makes it very sort of rigid what they're able to do to trade for people. So when you limit yourself to say like one position, you're like, we got to upgrade this one position. Well, there's a limited amount of guys in baseball that are going to be available for that, said position. A lot of the good guys are going to be on teams that aren't selling. And then you're going to have a lot of guys who are overpriced and are going to cost like an Eduardo Tait or an Andrew Painter, who I don't think Dombrowski wants to give up at all. And I personally, if anybody reads my comments on the sub will know I'm an Eduardo Tait fanboy. Like I fantasize about Eduardo Tait coming up at like 20 and being good for this team, which I get may be unrealistic, but Eduardo Tait is the truth. I will stay by that until proven otherwise. But the point is, to get back on topic, that what are the center field options last year? I mean, there weren't any that really blew you away. You had I think Cody Bellinger was available last year. I don't remember correct 100%. It was
overpay
him
for Lou Bob.
Yeah, Luis Robert, who just, oh God, if I have to hear one more article about Luis Robert, being, a good trade candidate for the Phillies, my eyes are going to roll out of their sockets. He's been awful for 2 years now. At what point is it, do you go, listen, if you can't be motivated to perform well to get traded off this awful team, when do we just say you're just not a good presence to have on a team?
That's I have no interest in him.
Yeah, I have no interest in Luis Robert. And I just never got it last year either. It's like, don't you want to trade for guys who are at least having semi-good seasons in the middle of the season if you're trying to make a big splash to impact the team? I don't know. It did not make sense to me.
And that's a great segue. One more thing before I get to more about the trade deadline. And Joe Ross just shouldn't be here anymore. The Phillies are so slow to DFA guys, and Joe Ross, he's just not it. I'd rather see Seth Johnson. I'd rather see Max Lazar. I'd rather see pretty much any of the guys that we've seen get called up, for doubleheaders or other random weeks. I don't need to see Joe Ross anymore.
So I think part of this plays into the devil you know and the devil you don't know. And they have been giving these other guys chances to come up into the majors and produce. I think they had Seth Johnson up earlier in the season. I can't remember because they've had a zillion guys come up and pitch out of the bullpen for them because
they have
such a wreck early in the year. And I think they're trying to find something okay, are you actually better than Joe Ross? Which, admittedly very low bar, but still one I think you have to prove that you can clear at the major league level. Because I think the last thing they want to do is they dump Joe Ross and replace him with somebody for a month and a half who's somehow even worse than Joe Ross. And I think Ross also gets some slack because he does have some history of being a good/competent MLB pitcher with good stuff, undeniably good stuff when he was with the Nationals. And they wanted to see if they could recapture that. They found out that he didn't, and it sort of turned into, he's a long guy. He can eat innings for us when the game's going to get out of hand, or, Mick Abel gets pulled after 2 innings or something. And I don't think it's the biggest concern on the team, them not being able to DFA depth pieces like Joe Ross. It's frustrating. I get that. I'm just oh my God, this guy's on the team still. I get that. I had that with Whit Merrifield last year. But I think it's just sort of are we sure we actually have anything better? That's one thing I kind of say, to friends. It's they have to have somebody better in the minors. And it's I don't know if they do. The Phillies minor league, it's definitely better than it's been in years past, but the AAA Iron Pigs, they aren't that impressive in terms of actual MLB talent. They have a lot of quad A guys who tear up the AAA level, but just are not going to translate at all into the MLB. I bet you could send Joe Ross down into AAA and he'd have a 2 ERA.
Yeah, I mean, you look at when the Phillies were really bad, in the middle of the 2010s, and they still had a great Lehigh Valley team, not because they had a good farm system, but because they had quad A guys. They had so many bad players that weren't good enough to be in the majors, even on a bad Phillies team, but were better than AAA players usually are. And let's get into our first listener question from Coaster Craze on Discord. It's for both of us. who is your number one option for a bullpen and outfield acquisition? And like, who would you send for them? And then how likely do you think that this trade is? So I'll give you a second to think about it, and I'll go over my two real quick.
Okay.
In the bullpen, I want to see David Bednar. He has one more arbitration year left, so we have control of him through 2026. And I'm not exactly sure what a trade for him would look like. He struggled a lot last year and early this year, but he's been really, really good for a couple months now. I would want to send like a Mick Abel or a Rune Escobar type, even combine them if you have to. And I think that this is pretty likely. We've seen some reports that the Phillies could have interest in Bednar at the trade deadline, and I'm saying right now that the chances that they get him are probably 25 or 30%. And then for the outfield, I don't know how available this guy is going to be, but if he is, I'm all for it. Give me Adolis Garcia from the Rangers. This is going to cost probably quite a bit more than Bednar would. You're probably getting to Crawford plus more at that point. And because of that, I think it's like a 5% chance. I don't think the Phillies are really going to sell anything big. But give me like a big right-handed bat in the outfield that can just mash balls. I would love that.
So, if you don't mind, I think I'd like to start for each category before I go into who I do not want them to get. I do not want them to see for reliever go out and try to get Carlos Estevez. Carlos Estevez, his numbers look nice, his ERA looks nice. Everything under the hood says he is completely fraudulent. I just want to ask people in the know: do you want a guy with a 51% fly ball rate to come and pitch in Citizens Bank Park? Because
nope.
that's what Carlos Estevez is. He doesn't strike anybody out. All the contact he gives up seemingly is hard. Not all the contact, but a ton of the contact he gives up is hard contact. His ERA is, like I said earlier in the show here, it's like the Brad Hand phony ERA from 2022, where you know he's worse than his ERA says. The guy who I want, and this is actually from your last show, I would love the Phillies to go out and try and get Griffin Jax. I had completely forgotten about him, but he's what makes Griffin Jax enticing to me is that he would be probably not horrifying to try and go get, because the Twins, first off, the Twins suck. Okay, they suck.
They're done.
Yeah, they're done. So they're not going. They have no incentive to hold on to Griffin Jax, who's 30 years old. He's not going to be good for them, in like the future or something. So there's no reason they'd extend him. He's arbitration eligible 2026. So he's going to have arbitration years coming up. And he's 30 years old, like I said. So he's going to be 31 in November. So I don't think his cost is going to be that much. His ERA is a little high, but his FIP, like you said in the previous show, is really low. It's 1.94. He strikes out tons of dudes, has a good ground ball rate. He is if you as a fan want a lights out closer, or like I hate the closer term in today's baseball, so I say lights out late inning high leverage reliever. Griffin Jax, I think, is a great under the radar guy to try and go grab from the Twins. Now, I think it is absolutely going to first cost a Mick Abel and maybe an Arun Escobar. I think Abel, because Abel has at least shown that he has made steps forward this year. I don't think Abel's trade value, by the way, has deteriorated much at all from being in the majors. I think everything he showed in the majors is a known quantity about Mick Abel. But besides that, I think the Twins, you see a starting pitcher guy with the potential that Mick Abel still has. That's enticing. He's never had an injury history to really degrade his stock. And then Arun Escobar is a good kind of add-on piece to put in there, I think, just as a single A. I might be overselling from the Phillies here. I'm not super deep on their minor league guys. I kind of follow the box scores and go, okay, they're doing this. This guy's hitting the ball hard. This guy isn't. But I'm not great at putting together trade packages, so I might be way overpaying for this. But I do know that I want Griffin Jax. So whatever the trade package is, might have to put together for him, as long as it doesn't include Painter, Tyet, or Miller. I'm go for it.
He has 2 more years of team control, so that would be good for not just the 2025 and 2026, but also the 2027 if there's a 2027 season. Phillies.
So the outfield. So this is going to be kind of this might ruffle some feathers to say this, because this is going to involve actually not acquiring an outfielder, but acquiring somebody else, then moving the guy back into the outfield. If I'm the Phillies, I might look at Ryan O'Hearn with the Orioles. And I know that he's a lefty, and I know that is going to upset people. He's also a first baseman, which means that Bryce Harper has to go out and play either left field or right field. And, if he plays right, you obviously move Nick Castellanos to left. God help us. But Ryan O'Hearn has a WRC plus of 140 this year. So for people who don't know, that means he's hitting offensively 40% above league average offensively. So, and his WAR right now is 2.0. So you bring him here, and it's an immediate jump to the offensive productivity into this lineup. He walks a ton. His on base percentage is insanely high. It's like 370 or something.
Love it.
And yeah, OBP guy. He's not like Taylor Ward, who fans want. Taylor Ward will drive you insane because his OBP is under 300. All of his value is from slugging. That is all Taylor Ward's value is from slugging. That's all it is. But Ryan O'Hearn actually gets on base a ton, and he hits for power. So that's everybody's big concern, I think, right now is the offense, and he is an immediate massive improvement, I think, to the offense. And yes, he has a fall off against lefties. His WRC plus against lefties is like 80, so he's not good against them. But against righties, who you're going to see the most, he is unbelievable. And he's not like Max Kepler bad against lefties, which, it's hard to do.
Serviceable, right?
Yeah, he's serviceable. So he's also a free agent in 2026, which means he is a rental. So he's not going to cost that much. And I think you might get Ryan O'Hearn for, and again, I'm awful at these, maybe just Arun Escobar.
If that. I don't even know if they would take an Arun Escobar, right?
Yeah, like he's going to be cheap because again, you're getting him for what, a couple months in the playoffs. So
in the last couple of years, you've seen rentals cost very, very little. Rentals don't cost nearly as much as they did a decade ago.
Yeah, and the guy I do not want for this offensive player point of view, I do not want to see this team try and go after Byron Buxton. I know there's been some talk about, Byron Buxton, he's uber talented. Byron Buxton on the field is amazing. He's amazing on the field. He would fill the center field hole when he's here. The issue is that, and also he has team control still. The issue is that how much of that team control is he actually going to be on the field? And like, I'm just saying this because I know I'm someone who sometimes shrugs off injury concerns. Byron Buxton has played 100 games since 2019, exactly once in 2024 when he played 102 games. So you're going to get an inflated cost for him because he has all those years of team control left, but he's likely not going to be on the field for those years that you paid all of your prospects for. So he's just not, the risk is not worth the cost for me with Byron Buxton. I would be really happy this team did not try and make a major push for him.
Buxton would help a lot if he was healthy for the playoffs. And I don't know if you trade for Buxton, you have to kind of load manage him in September, maybe DH him throughout September just to, make him healthy going into the postseason. Yeah. And maybe the Twins are eating some money if you're trading for Buxton because
maybe that might maybe consider it.
And that's a great tie-in what you had about Harper, because the next question that we got from Coaster Craze is, what are your biggest hot takes about the Phillies? And I have several. And my first one is that Bryce Harper should not be playing first base. This team has so much easier time fixing the first base hole than the outfield hole. And the problem with Harper has not been the fielding. He has said it himself. Swinging is what makes him cause pain. I don't need to see him at first base. This is never going to happen, I don't think. I would love it if that happened. But I don't think they're ever going to move him off of first base, and I wish they would, at least for the rest of this year. Go. What's your first Phillies hot take?
So, if I may just comment on that real quickly, I was saying back in 23, it would help, or 24, it would help this team immensely if they just put Harper back into right field, dumped Castellanos, and looked for a first baseman who could actually put up hit 20% above league average, and not. Because Harper, for as bad as he's in the field, he is not Castellanos bad, and he's a better offensive player than Castellanos. So my Phillies hot take is that I do not believe the bullpen right now, in this very moment, as we record this podcast, is as bad as everybody makes it out to be. I don't think it's good, but I do think right now, as of right now, it is about league average. So a lot of the things you see right now when you see bullpen explosions from the Phillies, it's them bringing the guys like Joe Ross or their long guys to come in like the fifth inning when they're down like 2 or 3 runs and getting blown up. But that's not really how I really judge, the meat of a bullpen. The meat of the bullpen is the guys you have on the back end of the bullpen. Okay. And right now you have Ryan Kerkering, you have Matt Strahm, you have Jordan Romano, and you have Tanner Banks, and those are your four best guys. And Alvarado is going to be back for the last month and a half, and not in for the playoffs. So so I'll start off with Orion Kerkering. If you do not trust Orion Kerkering right now, when you see him coming into games, I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you. Orion Kerkering has been unbelievable for 2 months now. Just lights out. And listen, he could do with some more ground balls in these last 2 months, and he still walks, I think, too many people. It's like 4/9 in the last couple months. So it's not amazing in those categories, but he just looks so much better out there. Like, you can actually get lefties out now. That sinker looks great. And the sweeper, of course, is the Orion Kerkering sweeper. It's just as good as ever. You look at Jordan Romano, and this is the most controversial part of this take. Jordan Romano, since the end of April, has not been a bad pitcher, and he's actually been okay for this team. Since the end of April, his FIP, I think, is right at 3. His ERA is 4.5, which indicates to me he is probably getting some bad luck with balls in play, like you saw with some of those hits in, just the Pirates outing or something, where he had 3 hits that were 75 miles per hour or less off the bat. He's not lights out. He's not a super high leverage guy, but he's absolutely been competent. And I think you're lying or just not looking close enough if you say that Jordan Romano hasn't been competent in the last couple months or so. You have Tanner Banks. I think most people are getting kind of comfortable with Tanner Banks as, say, 7th inning guy. Don't want him as a high leverage dude. I don't want to see him facing, the heart of the Dodgers order in like a 1-run game in the playoffs. Absolutely not. But he's definitely been a good, 7th inning dude. And Matt Strahm, covered him already. I think he's going to bounce back to be 2023 Matt Strahm. I don't think you're going to see 2024 Strahm again. But 2023 Strahm is absolutely a competent beast to have in your bullpen. They still need to get some help for the bullpen. That's why I want Griffin Jax, because you need that lights out kind of end the inning now type arm that they had with, say, Jeff Hoffman in 2024 and 2023, which they are lacking right now. That's the big thing missing from this team, is that guy who comes in, you're like, okay, he's going to get 2 strikeouts and pop up and the inning's going to be over. But that's my hot take. The bullpen is not as bad as people are saying it is right now.
Yeah, I would think, from my perspective, this offense and this outfield specifically is a bigger problem than the bullpen.
Yes, absolutely.
And what they've been doing to mitigate the bullpen, because the back half of the bullpen, meaning guys 5, 6, 7, and 8, they're terrible. They are really, really bad. But they've been able, because they have such a good pitching rotation, to extend these guys like 1 inning longer than they normally would, 1 inning longer than any other team would. And that's just making you have to go one less guy deep into the bullpen, which has really been helping them out for several months now.
Oh, so if I may add this secondary hot take on, I'm not giving Ranger Suarez a massive extension. I might give him a 4-year extension or something, but I am not giving him I'm not backing a dump truck up to him to pay him like they did with JT or Zach Wheeler or any of those guys. I'm not backing a dump truck of money up to him. Him getting the quoting, like I think he said after last night, the reason he came out after 5 innings was because his back was bothering him in his previous start again. Like, at this point, I'm ready to start saying it's basically a chronic injury with his back issues, and that's not going to get better as he ages. And I love Ranger. I love Ranger so much, dude. I love him. He's like, I think probably my second favorite pitcher in the rotation. But I just would not feel comfortable about giving him a large contract. I'd pay Schwarber before him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I am in agreement with you, and we'll go into the rotation or go into the extension talk in just a minute here. But I do have one more hot take, and this is an off the field in terms of the players, but literally having to do with the field hot take. And it's that Citizens Bank Park is really, really overrated at this point. I think that it is still good, but every single decision that they've made over the last 4 years has made it a worse place to watch the game. The new scoreboard, all ads. You look at the way that they took away the flower bed, and it just is, a big orange ad. Hate it. Out of town scoreboard, that's the worst of all. The way that it's been completely unable to handle crowds, and the way that if you want to go to the bathroom or get something to get food, you're missing like an inning and a half. Terrible. It is the worst park I've been to as far as be able to handle crowds. And I love the way that it looks. And I still think it's a good place to watch a game. But on the rankings of the stadiums that I've been to, which I've been to 20, well, I've been to 21, but
Ooh.
I was young when I went to the vet. I have CBP at number 14 out of 20 of the 20 that I can remember something of.
So I will completely agree with you on a lot of those points. I think it's the Esplenda ads that are on over the flower bed now. Like,
Yeah.
that's awful. That I think I actually hate that more than the out of town scoreboard thing, which I hate too. The new scoreboard, I don't notice it super much, but I can agree that the ads are taking way too much crap. On the terms of missing an inning and a half to go get a beverage, let me just add, because this is personal for me. And I think it's kind of funny. I was blessed to go to the game 3 against the Braves in 2022. I went with one of my college roommates, and it's like middle of the 4th, and I'm like, dude, my mouth is dry as the Sahara Desert. I'm gonna go get a drink. And this was like, I think their second year of being a cashless stadium. And I go down to go get a drink. I'm standing in this line to get water, and I get that it's a playoff game, and there's gonna be tons of people. And I'm sitting there for 10, 15 minutes, and the line is moved by maybe 3 people because of how slow and inefficient the system is. And that actually ended with me getting my first beer from one of the beer people walking around at the stadium, because that's the only way I could get a drink without missing 3 innings of the first Phillies playoff win at home since 2011. So that's all. It's terrible. I think it's definitely gotten better since then, but it was awful when they first ran it out. And I think what you didn't mention is the location of CBP is just not attractive. I don't think it's attractive. I've been to Baltimore. I will say the stadiums I've been to. I've been to Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Washington, and I feel like I'm forgetting one, but those are the ones that I, vividly remember. All those stadiums, at least to me, in Washington, the last time I was to them was 2012. They feel way more integrated into the city than CBP is. CBP,
Yes.
It's convenient that it's a sports complex, and it's just, okay, everything's right here. It's super convenient. I'm never going to deny that. But it's just in the middle of a parking lot desert, dude. That's all it is. And
but you have Xfinity Live. No,
yeah, if Xfinity, like, got the casino right there. Go throw all your money away after the game.
You have a casino.
Yeah. But like, I've been to Pittsburgh, and I'm sorry, the view of the city from like 20 miles away or whatever it is from Citizens Bank Park does not impress me like being in Pittsburgh and the city is just there. Like, there's a reason the Pirates' attendance is still like halfway okay, considering how bad they are, and it's because of how good their stadium is.
Yeah.
And how good just it is to watch a game there. CVP, by the way, I love it so much. I love CVP. I'm not hating on CVP. Like, so many memories there. Section like 211, 212 is my favorite place to sit in the entire stadium. It's like just to the outside the Hall of Fame club on the first base side.
Good place.
It's fantastic. And it's a great ballpark. It is heaven compared to what the vet was from what I heard about the vet. I was 2 when they demolished the vet. I will not pretend to know how awful the vet was, but I've heard things. But yeah, CVP is, I think, been downgraded a lot. I think the old out of town scoreboard was just way better. Absolutely. I will say the thing that is better about CVP is I'm actually showing more advanced stats on the scoreboard, which for a stat nerd like me, I love. It's not just average home runs, RBIs, and stuff like that. I like that they've at least included things like WRC plus or OPS plus out on the scoreboard now. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, other than that, like, minor thing, like, the prices for food now are just, I know this isn't, they're obscene. When my father and I, we went to see the Paul Skeens Mick Abel game, right? Because I texted my dad, I was like, Mick Abel's getting called up. He's going to be pitching against Paul Skeens. We got to go do this, right? And we go there, and we usually get a heater from Campos, which is the best cheesesteak in the ballpark, in my opinion. And we go to look at the prices for this thing, and it's $20 when we went there. It's $20 to get a heater at Campos. I think somebody in the comments recently said it was 18 now, but you're just better off bringing your own food into the stadium at this point.
They're going to shut that down at some point. I feel like
Oh,
feel it in my
absolutely.
bones.
It's getting to a point. But granted, my dad and I we ate outside the stadium for that game, so we didn't actually bring our food in. And I bet you they're going to crack down. No, I don't think they can because the outcry over cracking down, bringing in water would be just
Water they'll keep,
horrifying.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no way they're going to crack down on that. And by the way, the prices of water bottles also just utterly stupid in Citizens Bank Park. But yeah, they've downgraded the park a lot throughout the years, I feel like.
Yeah, glad that we're in agreement on that because I know a lot of
Yeah.
people are probably going to be upset at me saying that. So let's get into these extensions now.
Hmm.
In my recent out of the park simulation that I was talking about in the last episode, I got to the end of the 2025 season and I got some extension requests from Ranger, Schwarber, and JT. And I want to hear your take on them, and then I'm going to tell you if I ended up taking them or not. So Ranger, I think I know what you're going to say about this one, but just to get it out there. Ranger asked for 7 years, $180 million, with an opt-out after year 3, and that 7th year was a player option. What do you think about that?
No. that's what I think about it. No. Sorry,
Yeah,
no.
I did not sign that. I think that is a disaster contract.
Yep.
Don't even need to go any more depth in that. That is bad. Kyle Schwarber is next. 4 years, $150 million. And so it's $37.5 million a year. And that 4th year was a player option for him. What do you think about
So
that?
I think for a guy who's going to DH, that average annual salary is a little high for my liking. I think the years are fine though. I might sign that for him.
Yeah, it's close. It's a lot closer than Ranger. My problem with Schwarber is the exact thing you just said. The DH part, I think as these guys age, especially Bryce Harper, you might want to have him be the DH more
Yep.
often in 2027 and 2028. And I would love to get Schwarber for like 3 years, 110 even. Like, sign me up for that all day. But that 4th year is where I'm kind of like, I don't know how I feel about it. I did try to negotiate with Kyle Schwarber in OOTP, but I ended up letting him go because he did not want to go below like 140, and I was like, this is just a little more than I want to pay.
Yep.
So the next guy is JT. JT also asked for a 4-year contract with the 4th year as an option, and this is $64 million, so 16 a year for JT for 4 years.
So the average pay per year is fine by me there. My issue is signing JT for 4 more years. We've already seen what the decline of JT looks like offensively, at least from his prime. And I get it that among catchers, he's actually still okay right now. He's still pretty good among catchers. But it's kind of undeniable that he's losing some of his skill set right now. And he's still going to end the year as a good, valuable player to this team, I think. But I don't know that I want to see another 4 years of JT here. Maybe 2 years would have been fine by me, 2 or 3 years tops. But 16 million a year, that's fine. 4 years is a little too long for me.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that too. Give him a higher AAV because really, I'm with you that it's like the bridge to Tayit, like it's probably only 2 or 3 years away, and I don't want JT for 4 years. Now, what I will say is JT's worst attribute defensively is his complete inability to frame the ball.
Oh God,
It is one of the most annoying things. He doesn't even try half the time. He just doesn't even try to sell it as a strike, even if it is an actual strike. If the robo-umps come, that is going to matter a lot less, and his defensive value is going to go way up because of that. With that being said, I still don't want JT for 4 years.
Absolutely. I think that, his framing, it's the most shocking thing about him, because JT did actually used to be an elite framer, and then out of nowhere, it just like fell off the map, like his framing ability. And I don't know why that is. I don't understand catching enough, so there might be some physical aging part of it that makes it so that his framing ability has fallen off. But it's just, to me at least, it's appalling how much it's fallen off the cliff for him.
Yeah, it looks like he doesn't try. I'm not a catching expert either. I was a catcher for my first year playing baseball, and then in my last year, both the catchers got hurt. And since I had experience catching, 14 years before that, I had to catch for 10 games or whatever like that, which is unbelievably hard going back to that after not catching for 14 years. But just the framing is disgusting. But if the framing goes away, then maybe he has more value defensively. And that's what I had as far as the OTP extensions. And now let's talk about the All Stars. The Phillies ended up getting 2 players into the All Star game. Zach Wheeler as a pitcher in the National League, maybe he'll start, even though it probably will be Skeens. And Kyle Schwarber. What do you think about these All Stars elections for the Phillies?
So I just want to say first off on All Stars that I'll get to Trey Turner in a second. Kyle Schwarber, I think definitely deserves it. Zach Wheeler is the most no-brainer on the team. But Trey Turner not making it into the All-Star game is the reason I do not care about All-Star selections as something on a player's resume. Because Trey Turner is a better shortstop this year than Francisco Lindor. I'm just going to put it out there. At minimum, he is about equal, but I think he's a better shortstop right now at this moment than Francisco Lindor. Trey Turner is playing a Gold Glove level defense at shortstop this year. As much as I know people are just going to say that's not true because they're used to Trey Turner sucking at defense, he is.
He's been so good.
He's been so good defensively at shortstop this year, and I think people need to stop sort of denying reality and be like, okay, this guy is playing a high level of defense for us over here. He's doing what people wanted him to do, which is hit, for about 300 spray base hits all over the place and using his legs to steal bases. He is the guy they signed to that contract right now. He's got I think 3.7 F4 so far this season. He's been unbelievable so far. I think he's their best position. He's their best position player by F4 this season so far. And him not being even selected at sorry, I'll just wrap this up. Him not being selected as a reserve is just criminal.
I am in complete agreement with you. I'd have 3 All-Stars for the Phillies if I got to choose everything, and it would be Schwarber, it would be Wheeler, and it would be Turner. And I would pick Turner above Schwarber if I had to have just one of them personally.
Oh, yeah. I would too, actually.
So we'll see what happens. There's always some guys that drop out. There's some guys that come in, and maybe Turner ends up making it at the end of the day. And I hope so, but we will see. So let's look ahead to the Giants. The Phillies make their West Coast swing, second one of the year. I love these West Coast swings. Maybe it's because I went to college in California. Maybe it's because I like watching the Phillies late at night. But they're going to San Francisco for 3 games, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday, they have Christopher Sanchez against Landon Raup. On Tuesday, they have Taijuan Walker back in the rotation against Robbie Ray. And then Wednesday, Jesus, probably, maybe, we'll see, against Justin Verlander. So what are you thinking going into this series?
Well, it seems like whenever they go out and play the Giants in San Francisco, it just never goes well, at least in my
Disaster.
memory. Yeah, I'm hoping for 1 of 3, like just whenever we go in there. And I know people will be upset if it's 1 of 3, just because you lose the series. But Sanchez, I think, is going to do well. It's Christopher Sanchez in 2025. I think you can expect him to shove. Taijuan Walker, it's a big question mark. I think he's going to go 3 innings, and then it's going to be a bullpen game, which, with having to, because that means they're not bringing in the back 4. They're bringing in the schlop in the middle, like Bill Ross. And then Jesus Luzardo, that's the biggest wild card for me because Verlander, last I checked, admittedly was a little bit ago, was sucking this year, and it just looks like he's done. But I just don't know what we're going to get out of Jesus Luzardo at this point before the All-Star break. So I think they can definitely win this series, but I don't see really much probability of getting a sweep out of the series. But 1 of 3 I will take, and I'll be happy with.
Yeah, I'm with you. Give me a good Taijuan Walker start, like oxygen. Like I need a good Taijuan Walker start because anything to get this contract off the team, like sell somebody into thinking that he could be like a good 4 starter for them in the second half of the year, please.
Oh man, Taijuan Walker, if I can just say about this contract, man, that is the worst contract Dombrowski has signed by far his time here. It was something where at the moment they announced they signed Taijuan Walker, I saw the news and I was just like, really? We're signing this guy for 4 years and what is it, 18 million a year? And you go look, and went and immediately looked at his fan graphs. Yeah, it's like, this isn't a good contract. This is a terrible contract. It's kind of the inverse of what my reaction should have been upon seeing the Castellanos contract, where I was a fan of that contract when they signed it. And
me too.
Now, yep. And my dad was the one who was saying, I don't know about this. This doesn't look, signing a guy based off a career year here doesn't look like a great idea to me. But yeah, Taijuan, anything to get him off sooner, as long as they have somebody, of course, to replace him who's better. But yeah, him being gone, Castellanos being gone, so much. I can just imagine the monetary flexibility that gives this team, and it makes me really excited that they could get them off.
That would be amazing. And the weird thing about the Walker contract too is that was after we knew just how good Andrew Painter was, and Andrew Painter almost made the team the same year that Taijuan Walker came to Philadelphia. So that really never made any sense in the first place.
Painter throwing 1 inning or 2 innings or whatever, 1 outing in spring training, and then being gone, then getting Tommy John and being gone for a year and a half, like as like a 19-year-old potential phenom, which just felt like the most Phillies thing that could have possibly happened to Andrew Painter, just ever. It just feels like a Phillies thing, like him getting like that kind of And then when of course they were like, oh, he's going to work his way back, he'll be fine, he's going to work his way back, he doesn't need Tommy John surgery. The entire time I was just like, he's going to end up needing Tommy John surgery, isn't he? And then he ended up needing
almost
Tommy
always
John's.
do.
Yeah, and they're pushing like, oh, it's the same one Nola had, it's not a huge deal, don't worry about it. I'm just like, it's the Phillies, dude, he's going to need Tommy John surgery, and we just pushed off the inevitable by another 4 months or something, or whatever it was. And, I get that the correct actions, the doctors, we're going to listen to them on this, said, listen, you should probably just try to come back from it normally first. But I just never had faith that was going to work. I'm a negative person with that regards, I guess.
What do you think about the Giants in general? They've obviously made the big trade for Rafael Devers, and they're 4-8 in their last 12. So they've been on a little bit of a cold streak, and it's kind of hurt their position in the National League West, where they are now 7.5 games back of the Dodgers and tied with the Padres. I think they're still a good team, but I think I was overrating them a little bit. I think the holes, and especially in that pitching, is really starting to kind of show itself.
So this is where I will admit that I'm not a super massive follower of goings on outside of the NL East, but the Giants, to me, just looking at just quick, overview of their team, I think they're better than the Padres. Just by run differential, they look like they're better. The Padres have, especially by the expected win-loss, the Padres are overperforming where they should be. The Giants, I think, are the second best team in that division, at least at this moment. And I think they just might be on a cold stretch right now, but they have, I still think, a pretty good starting rotation, and they're just going to be scary to go after. But I think they're definitely going to be in the playoffs come playoff time, though.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. And no matter what, going to that park is terrifying for the Phillies.
Yeah.
That's all I had. Did you have anything else that you wanted to bring up before we ended up this episode?
So I did want to say quickly, and I forgot to bring this up during the trade talks. There's a crowd out there. I think they're definitely a loud minority who sort of go, why do we bother holding on to prospects on this team? Because, during the rebuild, we had all these prospects that were supposed to pan out, like Spencer Howard or J.P. Crawford or, so on and so forth. Adam Hazley, Mickey Moniak, never worked out. Why should we care about, holding on to Eduardo Taiit or Aiden Miller or any of those kind of guys? And I want to make the case that this is not the same situation or the same kind of players as those guys were when they were coming up. When they were coming up, the Phillies farm system did not sort of have the massive reorganization that they had under Dombrowski for player development. The guys that were drafted, like Mickey Moniak, Adam Hazley, were not ever projected as consensus, like these guys are going to be great when they come up to the majors type players. And it's because those drafts were terrible in 16 and 17. There was no like consensus high guy you should pick in the draft that really stood out, like, a Steven Strasburg or a Bryce Harper type. And now we have guys who are actually projected by scouts, like Aiden Miller, Eduardo Taiit, Andrew Painter, so on and so forth, as being those potential stud level players in the future. So, and you have the improved player development that has turned out guys already. It turned out Orion Kerkery, and Orion Kerkery is a Dave Dombrowski draft pick in 2022. And it's kind of shocking that it's that recent to me. And when I realized it was a 2022 draft pick, the player development, player development system fixed Christopher Sanchez. Like, Christopher Sanchez looked like a lost cause in 2022 and 2021, and then they fixed him. And he's now like one of the best pitchers in baseball, to the point where we're outraged he's not on the All-Star team. So this farm system is capable of turning out great MLB level players, but they won't if we just trade them all away, and the team will not have a young future to come up and take up the play. Because you can't just sign free agents. You need some level of homegrown talent to have a consistent contending team. And this kind of goes to the point of people I ask, what do you want? Do you want a year where they have, this is oversimplifying things, but do you want a year where you have, a 20% chance of winning the World Series? Or do you want to have like 7 years where you have a 12% chance? And that's it's the long model versus the win now model. And there's a fine balance to be had there, but the Phillies are currently in a stage of, and you mentioned this in the last podcast, they're trying to avoid having the dead farm system with old players in the major league level that they had in 2014. And you just can't go and trade off every single player in the minor leagues and like, let's get everybody on the trade deadline. So that's kind of, I just wanted to address that.
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some good points. I'm not as much of a prospect hugger as you are, even though I do think there's a lot of really talented prospects that the Phillies have now in a way that they haven't for a really long time. But the point about player development is completely right, because no matter what, if you are a prospect hugger or you're not, you need that development to be in the place where you produce players that other teams perceive as valuable, because that way you either could use them as trade chips or they come up and they help your team, for the 6 years that they're under club control. And no matter what, the player development needs to be better. Pitching wise, the Phillies have been great at developing. Hitting less so, but we'll see how Tight and Miller go. Miller was like an obvious draft pick to make and go over slot. But thank you so much for coming on the episode, Giles. I really appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, no problem.
And everybody, thank you for listening to Inside Our Phillies. I will be back on either Wednesday night or Thursday, probably Wednesday night. And I will see you all later. Have a good one.